You're about to hear something that goes against everything you've been taught. It might even offend you at first. But keep listening, because if you take this deeply in, it will rewire how you move through life forever. You've been told to be nice, to be agreeable, and to be liked. That if people like you, they'll respect you. That if you keep the peace, you'll keep your power. But what if that's the very reason you're being overlooked, ignored, or even disrespected? What if the pursuit of being liked is the very thing that's making you powerless?
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
Machiavelli warned you centuries ago, it is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. At first that sounds cold, ruthless. But let's look deeper. What he meant was this: being liked is optional. Being respected is essential, because in the end, people don't follow the people they like the most. They follow the people they respect the most. And the mistake that destroys potential is thinking those two are the same. You've seen it, you've lived it, you've watched someone less talented, less intelligent, less kind rise faster than you. Why? Because that person wasn't afraid to be disliked. They weren't afraid to say no. They weren't afraid to assert their standards. And most importantly, they weren't afraid to be misunderstood. You, on the other hand, kept the peace. You made yourself smaller. You avoided conflict. And the world confused your kindness for weakness. This is where we begin the journey. Because if you're still trying to be liked by everyone, you're playing a losing game. Liking is emotional. It changes with moods. It's based on people's projections, their insecurities, their wounds. It's unstable. But respect is something else. Respect is what people feel when they can't ignore you, when they know you have standards, when they know you have boundaries that don't move just because someone gets uncomfortable. Let's go even deeper. Being liked is passive. All you have to do is agree, smile, and blend in. But being respected, that's active. It requires clarity. It requires courage. It requires the willingness to stand alone. And that's where most people quit, because standing alone is terrifying. But Machiavelli would ask you, what's more terrifying, standing alone or living a life where no one takes you seriously? Most people confuse likability with safety. They think, if everyone likes me, no one will hurt me. But the opposite is often true. If everyone likes you, no one fears crossing you. No one fears disappointing you. No one fears underestimating you. And without that subtle fear, not terror, but respectful tension, you become dismissible, replaceable, soft. Machiavelli teaches us that power is not about cruelty. It's about clarity. It's about sending a signal that says, I am not here to be liked. I am here to be effective. That's the energy that gets respect. That's the energy that makes people pause before they speak to you sideways. That's the energy that shifts rooms, even in silence. Let me ask you something that might sting. How many times have you betrayed your own truth just to avoid being disliked? How many times have you said yes when you wanted to say no? How many times have you tolerated disrespect because you didn't want to make it awkward? And where did that get you? Did it bring peace? Or did it bring quiet resentment toward them and toward yourself? This is the exact trap Machiavelli warns against. not because he wanted you to be ruthless, but because he wanted you to be real. He wanted you to stop pretending that love and respect are the same currency. They are not. Respect is earned through strength, through conviction, through boundaries. Love can be unconditional, but respect is always conditional. So how do we get respect without being liked? It starts with understanding that likability is a seduction. It tells you, just be nice and everything will work out. But respect says, be clear, even if it costs you approval. You must be willing to choose clarity over comfort. You must be willing to say the thing no one wants to hear, but everyone needs to hear. You must be willing to hold your position when everyone wants you to fold. And here's the paradox. The moment you stop chasing approval, the right people start respecting you more. Because they can feel your center, your gravity, your unwillingness to bend for cheap validation. And that makes them trust you, even if they don't like you. Especially if they don't like you. Because deep down, we respect the people who don't need us to agree with them. Let's talk practical. The next time someone disrespects your time, don't smile and tolerate it. State your boundary, calmly, directly. The next time someone tries to manipulate you with guilt, don't explain yourself. Just say, that doesn't work for me, and move on. The next time you feel the urge to over-explain your decision so they don't get upset, don't. Let your no be a full sentence. Let your silence be a mirror. Let their discomfort teach them something about themselves instead of shrinking to protect their feelings. Machiavelli would tell you, you don't owe people comfort, you owe them truth. And sometimes truth feels like cruelty to those who are used to control. But that's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to lead yourself, to live in integrity, to become a person who is respected in absence, not just liked in presence. There's another layer. When you stop needing to be liked, you become unpredictable. And unpredictability is power. When people can't predict whether you'll approve of them, they elevate their behavior. They pay attention. They self-regulate. But when they know you'll smile no matter what, they get sloppy. They get entitled. And they start seeing you as someone who exists to make them feel comfortable. That's not power. That's servitude. So here's the shift. You must move from being a peacekeeper to being a truth bringer, from being a comfort provider to being a standard bearer, from being the agreeable one to being the anchored one. That doesn't mean you lose your empathy. It means you stop weaponizing it against yourself. You will lose people when you do this. That's the tax. But the people you lose were never really with you, they were with your compliance. They liked the version of you that didn't ask for much, that didn't demand excellence, that didn't hold them accountable. So when the real you shows up, the one with boundaries, with clarity, with direction, they'll leave. Let them. Because the ones who stay, they'll respect you. And that respect will be the foundation of something real, not something shallow, not something fragile, but something powerful. By now, something inside you is shifting. You're starting to see the illusion for what it is. The illusion that being liked is the same as being safe, that approval equals value, that blending in will eventually lead to being seen. But let's go deeper. Because Machiavelli's warning doesn't stop at personal boundaries. It goes further. He's not just talking about how you carry yourself in conversations. He's talking about how you position yourself in life, how you show up in power structures, how you manage perception, and most dangerously, how you deal with enemies. Yes, enemies. That word makes most people flinch. We've been trained to think that having enemies means we've done something wrong. But what if it actually means you're doing something right? What if the presence of resistance in your life is a sign that you've stopped being a doormat and started being a force? Machiavelli wasn't afraid of enemies. He studied them. He understood that being respected often comes because some people dislike you, because dislike is the cost of impact. Look around. How many leaders in history were universally liked? How many visionaries, disruptors, change makers were beloved by everyone? Almost none. The ones who are remembered, the ones who shaped culture, business, politics, art, had enemies. They had critics. They had haters. And yet they were respected. Why? Because they weren't afraid to be disliked in public if it meant staying loyal to their truth in private. You can't lead if you need to be liked. You can't build something great if you're constantly editing yourself to avoid judgment. You can't command a room if you're always scanning it for approval. Machiavelli's wisdom is brutal because it's real. He didn't care if you were a good person. He cared if you were an effective person. And effectiveness requires clarity, not consensus. So let's ask something dangerous. What have you not done or not said because you were afraid of being disliked? What truth have you buried to protect someone else's comfort at the cost of your own power? What boundary have you let erode because you were scared of the fallout? And here's the deeper question: how much longer are you willing to pay that price? Being liked often means being forgettable. Why? Because likability usually demands that you soften your edges. But your edges are what make you memorable. Think of the people you most respect. Are they the ones who always said yes? Who never ruffled feathers? Or are they the ones who said what no one else dared to say and stood by it? Respect is built in moments of tension. It's forged in fire. It's not born in comfort. When someone sees you hold your ground under pressure, when they see you stay calm when insulted, firm when tested, and clear when challenged, they may not like you, but they'll respect you. And respect lasts longer than applause. Let's get tactical. One of the fastest ways to earn respect is to become impossible to manipulate. That means you must stop explaining your boundaries. Stop softening your no. Stop padding the truth. Stop over-apologizing for having standards. When you say something, let it stand. When you decide something, own it. When you're challenged, don't panic, pause. Let the silence do the heavy lifting. Let people feel the weight of your certainty. Machiavelli would advise you to become feared in the right way. Not feared as in terrifying. Feared as in respected to the point where people don't want to test your limits, because they know you have them, and they know you'll enforce them. That kind of fear creates peace. It makes people self-correct. It creates an atmosphere of clarity. And in that clarity, real trust can grow. Here's something most people never understand. The people who truly love you will love the version of you that doesn't need to be liked. They will love the version of you that stands tall, even when it's unpopular. They will love the version of you that doesn't fold, doesn't chase, doesn't compromise truth for approval. And the ones who don't, they weren't loving you. They were loving your compliance. This is where we go even deeper. Some of us were taught that love is earned by pleasing others. That respect comes from always giving, always yielding, always making space. But Machiavelli would say, who benefits from that belief? Who gains when you don't speak up? Who wins when you stay small? And most importantly, who are you losing when you do it? You're not here to be everyone's favorite. You're here to be undeniable. You're here to walk into a room and not need to dominate it because your presence already says enough. That kind of presence isn't built on likability. It's built on alignment, on knowing who you are, what you stand for, what you will and will not tolerate, and never needing to raise your voice to prove it. Let's talk about energy. People feel your energy before they hear your words. And when your energy says, "I hope you like me," they lose respect. But when your energy says, "I know who I am," they calibrate. They adjust. They listen, even if they don't agree. Because respect is not agreement. Respect is recognition of force. Here's a practice. For the next 7 days, notice every time you do something just to be liked. Every time you smile when you don't mean it. Every time you agree when you don't believe it. Every time you shrink, delay, apologize, or edit yourself to manage someone else's reaction. And ask yourself, what would I do right now if I didn't care about being liked? That's where your power begins. Respect without being liked is about becoming clean in your energy, direct, grounded, unapologetic. It's about not needing to be loved by strangers or validated by the crowd. It's about becoming so solid within yourself that people can feel your boundary before they reach it. That's not arrogance. It's sovereignty, and sovereignty changes everything. It creates magnetism. It builds reputation. It protects your time, your energy, your mission. And yes, some people will hate it, but they will respect it. And in the long game of life, respect is the currency that opens doors you never even knew existed. By now, something in you has already begun to shift. You're not just hearing these words, you're feeling them. You're starting to remember the moments where you gave away your power just to keep the peace. The times you were overruled in meetings, manipulated in relationships, underestimated by people who smiled to your face. And you're starting to understand why. Because you were trying to be liked in a world that only truly respects clarity, confidence, and consequence. Machiavelli would never tell you to be cruel, but he would demand that you be strategic, that you understand the deepest law of human behavior. People don't respect what's available to everyone. They respect what's rare, what's disciplined, what's earned. And you, if you're constantly available, constantly agreeable, constantly digestible, you become forgettable. You become background noise in the lives of people who will never treat you the way you deserve because you never made them. That's the truth most people avoid their whole lives. They don't want to admit that they taught people how to treat them. They don't want to admit that every time they let a boundary slide, or smiled through a lie, or said yes while screaming no inside, they were training the world to ignore their value. And Machiavelli, if he stood beside you now, would not comfort you. He would cut through you. He would say, if they do not respect you, it is because you gave them no reason to. And that's not cruelty, that's freedom. Because if you created the problem, you can also create the solution. So let's talk about how. You don't need to raise your voice. You don't need to be aggressive. You don't need to become cold or inhuman. But you do need to become unavailable to disrespect. You do need to make your time expensive. You do need to make your presence something people earn, not something they consume casually. That starts with silence. Not passive silence. Strategic silence. When someone crosses a line, you don't need to argue, you need to withdraw. You need to make the consequence felt in your absence. Because people rarely change when you tell them the truth. They change when you stop protecting them from it. How often do you over-explain yourself? How often do you try to soften the truth to keep people from feeling uncomfortable? How often do you say it's okay when it's not okay? Every one of those moments is a leak in your power. Respect is not built on how well you manage other people's emotions. It's built on how well you manage your own. You must learn to hold tension, to allow people to misunderstand you, to allow them to sit in their discomfort when you enforce a boundary, to allow them to think you're arrogant, distant, or cold as long as you know you're being clear. Because trying to control how you're perceived is the fastest way to lose respect. People respect those who are anchored, not those who are constantly adjusting their sails to catch every gust of approval. This is how kings move. This is how queens move. Quietly, deliberately, with presence. You don't have to explain your position. You embody it. When you walk into a room with calm certainty, the room adjusts. When you speak with measured intent, people lean in. When you say nothing instead of defending yourself, your silence becomes a mirror and people see themselves more clearly than they ever wanted to. That's where your power lives. In the pause, in the stillness, in the decision to no longer trade your authenticity for acceptance. Machiavelli would say, let them hate you so long as they fear you. But let's translate that into modern psychology. It means let them dislike you so long as they know you're lying. So long as they know your time is not free. So long as they know your energy is not insecure. So long as they know that testing you comes at a cost, and that cost is your absence. Because your absence is a weapon. When you walk away from people who treat you like a convenience, you teach the room something no speech ever could. You teach them that you are not for sale. You teach them that your love, your loyalty, your light are earned. And in a world where everyone is desperate to be seen, the person who can walk away becomes the one everyone watches. Let me ask you something impossible. What parts of yourself have you hidden just to stay likable? Your ambition? Your standards? Your opinions? Your truth? And what would happen if you let those parts come all the way out, even if it made people uncomfortable? What would happen is this. The wrong people would leave. The manipulators, the users, the ones who preferred you small. But the right people, the ones who respect power, they would find you. They would rise to meet you. Because powerful people don't want more comfort. They want more clarity. So here's your challenge. Starting today, stop apologizing for your clarity. Stop shrinking to fit into spaces you've already outgrown. Stop trying to be liked by people you wouldn't even respect if you saw their true face. Start becoming the one who doesn't need to be liked because you know how to be respected. And that respect will change your entire life. It will change how people talk to you, how they negotiate with you, how they remember you. Because most people forget those who please them, but no one forgets the one who made them rise. This is the Machiavellian paradox. The more you try to be liked, the more you're dismissed. But the moment you stop chasing approval and start moving in alignment with your own truth, you become magnetic, not to everyone, but to the right ones, the ones who matter. The ones who will follow your lead not because you begged for it, but because they felt your power and couldn't deny it.